Depended on her
Here,
staying upright
take
long.
this.
Depended on her staying
Thank you,
upright
mister.
long enough for one small boy to walk half a mile in the cold and do exactly what she had taught him. She lay on the motel bed with one thin blanket pulled to her chin and the space heater aimed at nothing because the cord did not reach the bed, and she had stopped trying to fix things in this room a long time ago. The stained lamp on the wobbling table threw a circle of yellow light across the ceiling that moved every time the ice machine outside groaned against the wall of room 12. Sunrise Motel. The sign buzzed and blinked in sick red flashes through curtains that never quite closed. Doors lined up like teeth. Every room held a story nobody wanted to read out loud, and Jolene's was one of the quieter ones because quiet was how you survived when the man who controlled your life wore a badge and a smile that never reached his eyes. She turned her head and looked at Wyatt, 6 years old and sitting on the edge of the bed with his sneakers already tied and his hoodie zipped to the chin, too thin for February, but it was all they had. His small hands counted coins in his lap the way she had taught him, slowly, carefully, like the math mattered more than the money. $1, 37 cents. Jolene had found the coins in jacket pockets under the bed in the cup holder of a car she had not been allowed to drive in months. She had collected them the way prisoners collected hope, one piece at a time, hidden where nobody thought to look. She coughed, deep, wet, the kind that made her ribs ache and her vision swim. She swallowed the sound as best she could and forced her voice steady. "You remember what I told you?" Wyatt nodded without looking up. His fingers moved a quarter to the left side of his palm. "Tell me again," Jolene said. Wyatt's voice was small but practiced. "Walk to Ruthie's diner. Wait for the motorcycles. Find the biggest table. Put the money down. Ask for soup." Jolene closed her eyes. The room tilted behind her lids. "And if someone asked your name." "Wyatt, last name." He paused. She had drilled this. For weeks she had drilled it because names were weapons and shields and signals all at once, and Slade had spent 2 years trying to erase the one that mattered. Prior, Wyatt whispered. Jolene opened her eyes. Good. She lifted her wrist. The hospital bracelet was still there. White plastic, today's date, her last name printed in black ink. She had gone to the emergency room that morning not because she thought they could help, but because she needed the bracelet. She needed the name on her body where it could be seen, and she needed it dated so nobody could say she put it there later. The hospital had taken one look at her oxygen levels and told her to stay. She had walked out instead. Staying meant Slade would come. Staying meant he would smile at the nurses and tell them she was fine, and they would believe him because they always believed the badge before the bruise. She had planned this for 5 months. 5 months of letters written at 4 in the morning when Slade was asleep in his own apartment across town, the one he kept clean for appearances, while he used room 12 like a cage. 5 months of research on a library computer she walked 3 miles to reach because he tracked her phone. 5 months of watching motorcycle club forums and ride schedules and memorizing one name that Dex had given her 7 years ago, like a key to a lock she might someday need. Beckett. She did not know if he would be at the biggest table. She did not know if he still rode. She did not know if he remembered the name prior, or if it would mean anything after all this time. But she knew the club was passing through this stretch of Tennessee today because the ride had been posted online 2 weeks ago with a route that cut right past the diner. And she knew that if any single person from Dex's old life saw that name on a hospital wristband wrapped around a 6-year-old boy's hand, the world would tilt. Jolene looked at Wyatt again. Her chest ached in a way that had nothing to do with the fever. "If someone buys you soup," she said, "you eat. You bring one back for me, and you walk straight home. Do not talk to Deputy Slade. Do not talk to anyone else on the street." Wyatt looked at her then. His eyes were too old for 6. They were the eyes of a child who had learned not to assume that hands could be kind, who counted exits before he counted blessings, who knew the difference between a smile that meant warmth and a smile that meant something was about to break. "What if he is there?" Wyatt asked. "Then you leave," Jolene said. "You come back to me. We wait for another day." But she knew there would not be another day, not with this fever, not with the clinic bill due Friday and the empty medicine bottles on the sink and the way her lungs felt like they were filling with something heavier than air. This was the window. Right now. 77 motorcycles about to rattle past a diner in a town that forgot her name 2 years ago. "What if nobody helps?" Wyatt whispered. Jolene reached out and held his face with both hands. Her palms were too hot. His cheeks were too cold. Then you still showed them who you are, she said. A prior. Not whatever name he gave us. She let go. The effort of raising her arms left her dizzy. Go, she said, before the bikes leave. Wyatt slid off the bed. He opened his fist one more time, counted the coins, and closed it tight. He looked at her like he was memorizing her face the way soldiers do before they walk into something they might not walk back from. Then he opened the door, and cold air flooded the room, and the ice machine groaned, and the red motel sign blinked its sick rhythm across the gravel lot. He was gone. Jolene lay back. Her body burned. Her mind stayed sharp because it had to. Because 5 months of planning does not run itself, and because the only person who had ever told her the truth about how the world worked for women like her was a dead man who never got to meet his son. She closed her eyes and let herself remember. Just for a moment. 7 years ago, a different motel room. Cleaner, warmer. Dex Pryor sitting on the edge of the bed, lacing his riding boots, with hands that could fix an engine or hold a baby with equal care. He was going on a ride, a long one, through this same stretch of Tennessee, through these same hills that swallowed sound and held secrets. Jolene had been 21, 5 months pregnant, scared of a future she could not yet name, but could already feel pressing against her ribs from the inside. Dex had looked at her, smiled. Not the kind of smile that hid things, the kind that gave them away. If I do not come back, he had said, do not talk like that. If I do not come back, he repeated quieter. Find Beckett. He is the president. He will know what to do. Jolene had rolled her eyes because she was 21 and invincible, and so was Dex, and death was something that happened to other people in other towns on other roads. Dex had kissed her forehead, touched her stomach, said something she could not hear because the motel television was too loud, and she did not think to ask him to repeat it. He rode out that morning. He did not come back. The highway took him 3 hours later, a truck, a curve, a patch of gravel that did not forgive. The club sent a man to tell her. She could not remember his face. She could not remember what he said. She remembered the sound of her own breathing getting louder and the room getting smaller and the baby inside her kicking once as if to say, I am still here even if he is not. She had tried to contact the club. One message, one attempt through a number Dex had written on a napkin and tucked into her wallet. The number rang. Nobody answered. She left a voicemail. It never reached Beckett, and she did not know why. She never found out. After that, the current took her. Town to town, job to job. The baby came and she named him Wyatt because it sounded like a name that could stand on its own. She waitressed, cleaned houses, picked up shifts at gas stations that did not ask for references, and then she landed here. This town, this motel, this deputy with a clean uniform and a smile that looked friendly until you noticed it never changed no matter what he was doing. Slade found her the way predators find prey. Not by chasing, but by standing still and letting the terrain do the work. A small town, a single mother, no family, no money, no one to call. First it was kindness, a fixed tail light, a warning instead of a ticket, a hand on her shoulder that lingered 1 second too long. Then it was control, where she went, who she spoke to, what name she used. Pryor disappeared. A new name appeared on forms and leases in the motel register. His name, his town, his rules. The bruises came later, always where sleeves could cover them, always followed by that smile, always explained by a voice so calm it made her wonder if she was the one who was wrong. But she was not wrong. She was trapped. And there was a difference. 5 months ago, she had found the public library computer and started building a ladder out of words. Letters to a judge whose name she found in a domestic violence resource packet hidden behind a stack of romance novels in the motel lobby. Letters that described everything. The deputy, the sheriff, the motel, the bruises, the control, the fear. Letters that predicted exactly what he would do if she tried to leave. And now the ladder was built, and the only question was whether anyone would be standing at the top when she climbed. Jolene opened her eyes. The ceiling stain had not moved. The fever had. She coughed again, harder. The sound tore through the thin walls, and the ice machine groaned in response like it understood. Come on, she whispered. Come on, Wyatt. 77 motorcycles rattled the diner windows like thunder you could not escape. Leather vests, road dust faces that did not smile for strangers. Ruthie had already reached for the phone under the counter when the front door opened and a boy walked in. He was small, smaller than six should look. His hoodie was too thin for February, and his fingers were red from cold, and his cheeks were chapped in a way that said he had been outside before he was ready, but his chin was up, like he had practiced being brave. Like someone had told him that posture mattered even when everything else was falling apart. He walked straight up to the biggest table. 14 men, leather, patches, hands that could be kind or cruel. He opened his small fist and poured coins onto the wood like he was laying down the only cards he had. I have $1.37. Is that enough for soup? Every biker went silent. Even the grill seemed to stop breathing. Beckett sat at the head of the table. 50 years old, silver threading through dark hair. A face that had been rearranged by life more than once and had stopped apologizing for the way it settled. He was the president of the club, had been for 12 years. He had buried friends and broken promises and ridden through weather that should have killed him and somehow kept showing up at the next table with his hands open and his eyes steady. He looked at the coins, he looked at the boy, and then he saw the wristband. White plastic, hospital bright, the kind they snap on in the emergency room. Today's date, and a last name in black ink that hit Beckett in the chest like a fist he was not prepared for. Pryor. He did not move. He did not let his face change. But something inside him shifted a door that had been locked for 7 years, swinging open on rusted hinges, and behind it stood every promise he had failed to keep. He slid the coins back toward the child like they might crack. Hey, what is your name? Wyatt. How old are you, Wyatt? 6. You here by yourself? Wyatt nodded once, then corrected himself, quick like he had learned that getting details wrong had consequences. My mom is here. She cannot get up. A chair shifted. Not aggressive. Alert. 77 men did not ride together without learning how fast a room could turn. Beckett looked up at the waitress. Her tag read Ruthie. She was watching him like she was braced for the worst. What is the cheapest soup? Beckett asked. Chicken noodle, Ruthie said. Cup is $3.50. Wyatt flinched at the number and started pulling his coins back into his fist. I can get more, he blurted. I can find. Beckett covered the coins with his palm, stopping them from scattering. No, you do not have to. He reached into his vest, peeled off a 20, and set it on the table. 2 bowls, 1 here, 1 to go. Extra crackers. Ruthie hesitated, then nodded and turned toward the kitchen like she was afraid if she stayed, she would cry. Wyatt did not sit. He kept his eyes on the patches, on the heavy boots, on the hands that could go either direction. He had learned not to assume. Beckett leaned down a little, bringing his face closer without crowding the boy. Where is your mom staying? Wyatt's gaze flicked to the window and back. He tugged at his sleeve as if it hurt to talk about it. The paper wristband was hospital bright, today's date. That same last name again. The name that would not stop hitting. Sunrise Motel, Wyatt whispered. Room 12, by the ice machine. Beckett's jaw tightened. Is she sick? Wyatt nodded. She is hot. She says she is fine. She is not fine. Why did she leave the hospital? Beckett asked. Wyatt swallowed. They said money. Ruthie came back with steam rising from a bowl and a paper bag folded tight around another. She set the hot bowl in front of Wyatt and slid the bag toward him. Wyatt stared at the soup like it was something you could lose if you blinked wrong. He lifted the spoon with both hands, took a sip, and his shoulders dropped an inch. Not pleasure. Relief. Relief was what broke Beckett the most. Outside through the front glass, a patrol car rolled past the diner, slow as syrup. Not stopping, not leaving, just circling. Beckett did not stare at it. Staring made you a target. He watched Wyatt instead. Does someone stay with you and your mom? Beckett asked. Wyatt's spoon paused. Sometimes. Who? Wyatt's voice went small. Mike. The way he said it was not a kid talking about family. It was a kid naming weather he could not control. Beckett kept his face neutral. Mike a good guy. Wyatt did not answer. He just took another sip like he could swallow the question. The patrol car circled back and parked across the street, angled toward the diner. Engine running, lights off. Somebody inside watching the front door. Ruthie followed Beckett's eyes and went pale. "That is Deputy Slade," she whispered. "He has been around a lot lately." "How about right now?" Beckett asked. Ruthie's lips pressed tight. "He is always around when he wants to be." Wyatt finished half the bowl fast and reached for the paper bag like it might be stolen. He hugged it to his chest. "That is for your mom," Beckett said. Wyatt nodded hard. "Thank you." Beckett pointed at the bag. "When you bring that back, does Mike get mad?" Wyatt's throat bobbed. He tried to smile and failed. "I will say Ruthie gave it." Ruthie's eyes flashed with anger. "Sweetheart," Wyatt cut her off urgent. "He will not yell at Ruthie." "He will yell at me." The words landed heavy, not loud, heavy. A whole diner heard them anyway. Beckett's gaze went back to the wristband for half a second. Prior. His chest tightened like a fist made of memory and failure. "Walk straight back," he told Wyatt. "Do not talk to Deputy Slade. Do not talk to anybody else. You go to your mom." Wyatt nodded, eyes wide. Beckett added softer. "If anyone tries to take that soup from you, you come right back here. You understand?" Wyatt nodded again faster, like he was terrified to get it wrong. Ruthie reached out and squeezed his shoulder. "Be safe, baby." Wyatt hopped down, pushed the door open, and cold air flooded the diner. The bell over the door rang too bright in the sudden silence. Outside, the patrol car's engine revved slightly, a reminder. Wyatt was barely 10 steps away when the patrol car door opened. Deputy Slade got out slow, like time belonged to him. Early 30s, clean uniform, a smile that looked friendly until you noticed it never reached his eyes. He crossed the street and walked into the diner like he owned the place. The bell jingled again. Slade scanned the room, then let his gaze settle on the long table of vests. "That is a lot of motorcycles for one little diner," he said, voice easy. Beckett stayed standing, hands visible. "We are eating." Slade's eyes flicked to Wyatt's empty seat, then to the window. "Kid just leave." "Yeah," Beckett said. Slade nodded like he was making a note. "And you fed him." Beckett did not flinch. He asked for soup. Slade took 2 slow steps closer, stopping at the end of the table. "That boy is under my watch. His mom is complicated, and Mike does not like strangers getting involved." Dre's chair shifted a fraction. Boone's jaw flexed. Beckett felt the whole table tighten, but nobody moved. "Mike who?" Beckett asked. Slade's smile thinned. "Mike. That is all you need." He glanced at Ruthie. "You okay, Ruthie?" Ruthie swallowed. "I am fine, Deputy." Slade looked back at Beckett. "Here is how this works. You pass through, you spend your money, you leave. You do not follow kids to motels. You do not knock on doors. You do not make my day messy." Beckett kept his voice flat. "If a 6-year-old is counting change for soup, your day is already messy." The smile slipped for half a second, just enough to show the hard part underneath. Then it came back. "You do not know that woman," Slade said softly. "You do not know what she does when she needs something." "I know she is sick," Beckett replied. Slade shrugged. "People get sick. People still make choices." He leaned in a hair like he wanted Beckett to feel the badge without being touched. "Do not follow him." Beckett held his gaze. "Why, because I said so," Slade said, and this time there was no warmth in it. For a long second, the diner was a pressure cooker. Then Slade stepped back, smile returning like he had won something. "Enjoy your lunch," he said loud again, "and keep it peaceful." He walked out. As the bell jingled, a woman in the corner of the diner stood and left through the side door without looking at anyone. Black coffee untouched, face turned away like she did not want it remembered. Ruthie whispered, furious and scared at the same time. "He is going to take it out on that kid." Beckett watched the street. "That is why we are going." He did not say it out loud, but the name on that wristband kept flashing in his head like a warning sign. Pryor. The kind of name you did not forget if you had ever promised somebody something and failed. He picked up his jacket and dropped cash on the table without counting. 2 bikes only, he said, calm but final. Quiet. No pack. Dre was already standing. Boone looked like he wanted to argue and did not. The rest stayed seated, eyes tracking Beckett, like they were letting him carry the whole room's restraint on his shoulders. Outside, the cold hit sharp and immediate. Beckett headed for his bike, keeping his eyes on the corner where Wyatt had disappeared. Dre's boots crunched on salt behind him. 2 engines, not 77. Across the road, Deputy Slade sat in his patrol car, one hand on the wheel, eyes on the mirrors. He did not drive off. He wanted them to move first. Beckett waited through one long breath, then keyed his ignition. The engine came alive, low-controlled. Dre followed a second later. Far ahead, a small figure crossed under a flickering sign that read Sunrise Motel. Beckett eased out, keeping the gap wide enough to look harmless and close enough to matter, and rolled after the child. The Sunrise Motel sign buzzed and blinked, painting the gravel lot in sick red flashes. The ice machine groaned beside room 12, exactly where Wyatt said it would be. Beckett rolled past, once kept his head forward, then turned into the side lane and parked behind a dumpster where the light was dead. Dre killed her engine beside him. Two bikes, no pack, no noise. Across the lot, Deputy Slade's cruiser sat near the office, angled, like it wanted a clear view of every door. "You see heat on the hood?" Dre asked. Beckett nodded. "He was here before us." A man in a motel jacket stepped out of the office, saw their vests, then slipped back inside. They moved on foot, slow and ordinary. Wyatt was already at his door, trying to swipe a key card with fingers that shook from cold. The bag of soup hugged to his chest. Red light clicked red again. Wyatt's eyes darted around the lot, panic rising. Dre stopped a few steps away and kept her hands low. "Try it slower." Wyatt swallowed, swiped again. Green. He pushed the door open a crack. Warm, stale air leaked out. "Mom," he called, voice small. "I brought soup." Wyatt closed the door. The woman's voice was thin, sharp from exhaustion. Wyatt hesitated and looked back at Beckett like he needed permission to breathe. Beckett did not step closer. "Tell her you met us at the diner. Tell her you came back safe." Wyatt nodded and slipped inside. The door stayed partly open, a narrow slice of the room visible. One bed, a heap of clothes, a small table wobbling under the stained lamp. "You cannot bring people here," the woman whispered. "Urgent, they just bought soup," Wyatt said fast. A wet cough cut her answer in half. Another followed deeper, like it hurt to pull air in. Then the door opened wider, just enough for her to look out. Jolene Pryor was 28, but sickness made her face older. Flushed cheeks, glassy eyes, hair yanked into a messy knot. One hand gripped the frame like it was holding her upright. Her gaze locked on Beckett's vest and Dre's. Fear hit fast. "No," she breathed. "Please, just leave." But Beckett saw her eyes, and behind the fear was something else. Something calculating. Something that moved faster than fever should allow. She was scanning the lot. Not at the bikes, at the corners, the office, the cruiser. She was checking if the plan was still running. "Trouble finds this place," she said, and tried to close the door. Wyatt stepped into view behind her, clutching the paper bag. "Mom, you need to eat." The woman's eyes dropped to the bag. Steam pushed through the paper. Her face softened for 1 second, then tightened again like she remembered what kindness costs. "Put it on the table," she told him. Wyatt hurried to obey. Beckett's gaze caught a bright plastic band on her wrist as she shifted. Hospital white. Today's date. Last name in black print. Pryor. He did not react. He did not let his voice change. "You went to the hospital." "I went," she said, defensive. "They did not keep me. You should be in bed." Dre said gently. "I am in bed," Jolene snapped, then swayed as if her body wanted to prove her wrong. She steadied herself on the frame, breath shallow. "We are fine." The room was tight and brutal. One bed with a thin blanket, a chair propped with a phone book, a space heater aimed at nothing, and empty medicine bottles on the sink. On the table next to the soup lay a folded paper with a clinic logo and a handwritten note. "Pay by Friday." A car tire crunched on gravel. Dre turned first. Jolene turned second. Her shoulders went rigid like she had been yanked on a string. Deputy Slade's voice floated in, easy and pleased. "Well, well." Boots approached, without hurry. Beckett turned, hands open. Slade stopped a few feet away, smiling like he had been waiting for this exact picture. "Two bikers at a sick woman's door." "I told you not to follow the kid," Slade said. "We did not," Beckett replied. "We are returning him to his mom." Slade angled his body so he could see into the room. "Jolene," he called, suddenly gentle. "You okay?" Jolene's throat worked. "I am fine." Slade nodded like a teacher hearing the right answer. "Good, because I am seeing strangers at your door, and I am thinking I might need to keep you safe." He took a half step closer, eyes sliding past Beckett to the soup on the table. "Oh, look at that. Somebody feeding you." Jolene's cheeks flushed darker, shame mixing with fear. "They were leaving," she said. "How generous," Slade said, then looked at Wyatt. Hey, buddy, come here a second. Wyatt froze. Jolene's hand shot back, not grabbing Wyatt, just hovering, like she wanted to pull him in and knew she was not allowed. Wyatt, do not. Slade's smile stayed, but his eyes sharpened. Did not ask you, Jolene. He extended his hand toward the doorway like he was inviting. Come on, let us talk. Wyatt stepped back instead, pressing into the room. Slade's mouth twitched. That is all right. I will come to you. He started to step into the doorway. Beckett did not touch him. He simply shifted one foot, filling the threshold with his body like a wall you could not pass, without making it obvious you were forcing your way through. Slade stopped inches away, the smile thinning. Move. We are not inside, Beckett said. We are leaving. Slade's eyes slid to Dre. You recording? Dre did not blink. Why would I need to? Slade's gaze returned to Beckett, bright with threat. You want to play games? I can call this trespassing. I can call this intimidation. I can call child services and make it a long night. Jolene made a small sound behind them like she had been punched in the stomach. Please do not. Slade turned his head slightly, voice soft as velvet. Then answer me. Did you invite them here? Jolene hesitated, eyes dropping. But behind the dropped gaze, Beckett could see her thinking, calculating, choosing which words would keep the plan alive. They just walked him back, she forced out. There we go, Slade said, satisfied. He tapped to the door frame with two knuckles like he owned the building. Now you two, you leave, and you do not come back. Dre's jaw tightened. We are already leaving. Slade's eyes slid to her like he was choosing where to press. I am talking to him. He nodded at Beckett. Name. Beckett. Slade nodded as if filing it away. Beckett here is the thing. You do not get to play hero in my town. You get to buy lunch and ride out. Beckett did not move. That boy should not be begging for food. Slade smiled wider. Then maybe his mama should make better choices. Jolene's breath hitched like the words were a slap she was not allowed to react to. Her sleeve rode up as she tightened her grip on the door, and Beckett caught the edge of a yellowing bruise on her forearm before she hit it again. Slade reached a hand toward her. Not a grab, just two fingers landing on her forearm. Jolene flinched, but she did not look away. She looked straight at Beckett, and in that look was everything she could not say with Slade standing there. A message passed through eye contact the way messages pass between people who understand that words are monitored, but eyes are free. Remember this, her gaze said. You are seeing this. Beckett felt his spine go tight, but he stayed still. Do not touch her. Slade looked at him. Or what? Or you explain why a deputy is squeezing a sick woman in front of witnesses. Slade's eyes flicked across the lot. A curtain twitched in a nearby room. The motel jacket man hovered by the office door, pretending not to see. Someone was watching. Someone always was. Slade lifted his hand away like he had never touched her at all. See? Peaceful, he said. He stepped back, smile returning to full brightness. You heard me. Leave. Beckett shifted his weight back slow, showing he was not escalating. Dre mirrored him. They backed down the walkway. Jolene stayed in the doorway, eyes down, one hand tight around her own arm. But behind the submission, behind the posture of a woman who had learned to shrink her mind, was running calculations that none of them could see. Wyatt peeked out from behind her, watching Beckett like he was trying to hold on to the only adult in the last hour who did not scare him. Halfway to the corner, Beckett caught movement at the far end of the lot. A dark sedan, a woman standing beside it, half in shadow, same stillness as the woman from the diner. She lifted a hand to her ear as if listening, then lowered it again. A phone screen glinted once, pointed in their direction. When Beckett's eyes met hers, she did not look away. Slade noticed Beckett's glance and leaned in, voice low. Everybody watches, he murmured. You do not want to be the show. Beckett did not answer. He walked to the edge of the building where the ice machine hummed. Slade stayed close enough to crowd without touching. Good choice, he said. Now go. Dre waited until they were out of earshot, then spoke through her teeth. He is daring us. Beckett nodded once. He wants a headline. Behind them, a cough tore through the thin motel walls. Longer, rougher. Then Wyatt's voice, small and terrified. Mom. Jolene's reply did not come right away. Beckett turned his head toward room 12. The air smelled suddenly sharper, like fever and stale heat. He did not hesitate. He pulled his phone out. Call goes in, he said to Dre. On the record. Dre's eyes narrowed. He will try to stop it. Let him try. Beckett hit dial and lifted the phone to his ear, staring across the lot at Deputy Slade's cruiser as the line rang. The line picked up on the second ring. 911. What is the address of your emergency? Beckett did not look away from the cruiser. Sunrise Motel off Route 9, Room 12. Adult female, high fever, severe coughing, trouble breathing. She needs an ambulance now. Sir, is she conscious? Yes, Beckett had said, barely steady. She is deteriorating. Her child is inside. A uniformed deputy is on scene and is trying to prevent help. Dre's head snapped toward him. He had said it on purpose. Beckett kept his voice even. I want it in the audio. Stay on the line, the dispatcher said. I am sending EMS. Do not hang up, sir. What is the patient's name? Beckett called toward the door, not shouting. Ma'am, what is your name? A pause. Through the thin door, a ragged voice. Jolene. Last name, Beckett asked. Another cough, wet and hard. And then the voice came steady, deliberate, carrying the weight of a woman who had been waiting 5 months for this exact moment. The moment her real name went into a recorded system that Slade could not erase. Pryor, she said. The name hit Beckett in the chest again, but he kept his tone flat for the dispatcher. Jolene Pryor, he said. She has a wristband from today. Likely left the ER. She is getting worse. Slade stepped into view. Slow smallness in place like he was strolling a fairground. You calling 911, he asked, voice bright enough for the motel windows. Beckett did not answer him. He spoke into the phone. Deputy is approaching. I am not interfering with his duties. I am requesting medical help. Sir, I need you to stay calm, the dispatcher said. Beckett almost laughed. I am calm. Slade came closer until he could hear the dispatcher's voice, then leaned in. You can hang up. We have got it handled. Beckett kept the phone at his ear. No, we do not. Slade's smile did not move, but his eyes sharpened. Beckett, right. Here is what you are going to do. You are going to end the call, get back on your bikes, and leave. Dre shifted her weight a fraction. Not aggressive. Ready. Beckett spoke into the phone. Sir, he told the dispatcher he is instructing me to cancel the ambulance. Deputy. The dispatcher's voice carried faintly through the phone. This is emergency services. Do not obstruct the caller. EMS is en route. Slade's jaw twitched. He had not expected his own badge to be on record. He reached out slow for Beckett's phone. Beckett moved it away without jerking, still on the line. Do not touch me, he said quietly. Slade froze mid-gesture, smiling like it was a joke between friends. Relax. I am relaxed, Beckett said. Do not put your hands on a witness while a call is recorded. Behind them, curtains twitched. Somebody in a nearby room had their phone up. The screen's glow flashing as they filmed. Slade noticed the glow. His smile widened for the audience. See, they are already calling themselves witnesses. That is intimidation, folks. Dre lifted her own phone thumb, tapping to start recording. Not in his face, just enough. Slade's eyes flicked to it and hardened. Turn that off, Dre's voice stayed level. What, because I am telling you, Dre nodded once, then kept it running. Slade turned toward a room 12 and knocked like he owned the door. Jolene opened up. Inside, Wyatt's voice was small and frantic. Mom, please. The door opened a crack. Jolene appeared, swaying, one hand braced on the frame. Her skin was too flush, sweat shining along her hairline. She tried to pull air like it was stuck behind something. Slade's tone softened into performance. Jolene, you okay? I heard some drama out here. Jolene's eyes jumped from Slade to Beckett, fear and anger and exhaustion. I do not need. Her words broke into a cough so hard she had to fold forward. Wyatt's hands grabbed her waist from behind to steady her. Beckett did not step in. He stayed outside the threshold. Jolene, an ambulance is coming. Her head snapped up. No, Mom, Wyatt whispered. Jolene shook her head, a fast, desperate motion. No, we cannot. They will bill us. They will. Her eyes flicked to Slade like she had said too much. Slade's smile remained gentle. See, she does not want it. That is her choice. Beckett kept his voice low. Jolene, you cannot breathe. This is not about money. It is always about money, she rasped. And he... She stopped. Her gaze dropped to Slade's boots, then back up to Beckett's face. And in that look, Beckett saw the same calculation as before. The same intelligence burning behind the fever. She was not refusing the ambulance because she wanted to. She was testing something, seeing who would push, seeing who would fold. Wyatt looked between them, clutching the paper bag with the soup like it was armor. She gets worse at night, he blurted. She shakes and she says, "Do not tell Mike." Slade's face tightened for half a second at the name. Beckett caught it. So did Dre. Slade laughed once light and empty. "Kids say things. Wyatt, go sit down." Wyatt did not move. Slade's smile slipped toward irritation. "Wyatt." Jolene flinched at the tone. She grabbed the doorframe harder. Her sleeve rode up again, exposing more of that bruising. Not one bruise, several, layered like fingerprints that had been pressed too hard too many times. Dre's eyes went cold. Beckett heard sirens in the distance, faint but growing. Relief was immediate, then chased by the knowledge that sirens did not always mean rescue when the wrong people controlled the scene. The ambulance swung into the motel lot, lights washing the walls. A second vehicle followed, a smaller county unit, not Slade's, braking hard like it was trying to catch up. 2 EMTs jumped out. One, a woman with her hair pinned tight under a cap, moved fast. The other, older, carried the bag and the monitor. Slade stepped forward to meet them, smile back in place. "All good here," he called. "False alarm. You can clear." The female EMT did not slow. "We got a respiratory complaint. Fever, possible pneumonia. That is not a false alarm." Slade put a hand out, palm up in a hold gesture. "I am law enforcement on scene. Patient refused transport." The EMT looked at his badge, then at Beckett and Dre, then at the door where Jolene clung to the frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Ma'am," the EMT called past Slade. "I need to assess you." Jolene's eyes darted. She tried to straighten. "I am fine." The EMT walked up the steps, stopping short of the doorway. "Can you take a deep breath for me?" Jolene tried. The inhale caught shallow and ugly, and she immediately coughed again, body trembling. The EMT did not flinch. "Temperature? Any chest pain? Any history of asthma?" Jolene shook her head, then winced like even that motion was too much. Slade stepped closer, voice low, meant only for the EMT. "She does not have insurance. She will refuse. Do not waste time." The EMT turned to him, eyes hard. "Deputy, step back. You are not medical." Slade's smile tightened. "I am protecting her from a bill she cannot pay." Beckett spoke into his phone, still on the line. "EMS has arrived. Deputy is attempting to cancel care. I am witnessing." The dispatcher's voice was a steady thread in his ear. "Sir, stay where you are. Do not engage." Slade heard the dispatcher's faint voice. His nostrils flared. The EMT stepped closer to Jolene, voice firm and kind at the same time. "Ma'am, your oxygen is dangerously low. This is not optional if you want to stay alive." Jolene's eyes widened with panic. Not at the words, at what going in meant. "Wyatt, I cannot leave him." "I will ride with you," the female EMT said quickly. "We can bring him," Slade cut in. "No, the child stays with me." Wyatt's whole body went rigid. "No," he whispered, and it sounded like he had practiced that word in his head 1,000 times and still hated it. Jolene's hand trembled. "He stays with me." Slade's voice stayed smooth. "Jolene, you are not thinking clearly. I can take him. You get treatment." Jolene's eyes flicked to Beckett again, pleading without asking. She could not say the truth with Slade standing there, but her gaze said it anyway. Beckett's voice stayed calm. "Wyatt rides with his that is normal." Slade's smile sharpened. "You do not decide what is normal here." The female EMT looked between them, then pointed at her own radio. "I will call a supervisor and CPS if needed, but I am not leaving 6-year-old separated from his primary caregiver in the middle of a medical crisis because someone with a badge wants control." Slade's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone. Watch your interference," she shot back. The second county unit door opened and Deputy Harlan got out. Older, tired eyes, faced like he had lived through too many bad calls. He took one look at the scene and sighed. Little he called, warning in his voice. "What are you doing?" Slade turned, smile forced. "Nothing. Handling a situation." By blocking EMS, the older deputy asked. He looked at the EMTs. "What is the status? Low oxygen?" "High fever, respiratory distress," the older EMT said. "She needs transport." Deputy Harlan's gaze moved to Jolene. He softened his voice. "Ma'am, do you want medical care?" Jolene's lips parted. She stared at Slade, then at Wyatt, then at Beckett, as if choosing which danger was survivable. And in that moment, Beckett saw the decision form. Not surrender, strategy. She was choosing the move that kept the plan alive. "I cannot pay," she whispered. Deputy Harlan nodded once. "That is not your decision right now. That is paperwork later. Right now is breathing." Jolene's eyes filled. She gave the smallest nod. Slade's smile collapsed into something tight and cold. The EMTs guided Jolene out carefully. Wyatt moved with them, hands trying to help, then grabbing the suit bag again, like he could not leave it behind. "You can bring that," the female EMT told him. As if it mattered, as if small comforts mattered when you were terrified. Wyatt nodded fast and eyes wet and climbed into the ambulance with Jolene. As the doors closed, Jolene reached through the gap and caught Beckett's wrist. Not a grip, a touch, like an apology and a command at the same time. Her voice came ragged but deliberate, every word chosen. "Pryor," she said. "Remember that name." Then she coughed so hard she had to turn away. The door shut. The latch clicked. Slade stood in the flashing light, face unreadable now. "You happy?" he asked, voice low. Beckett ended the 911 call only after the dispatcher confirmed the transport. He slid his phone into his vest. "I am happy she is alive." Slade's eyes narrowed. "This is not over." Dre's jaw tightened. "It never is with people like you." Deputy Harlan cleared his throat, tired of it already. "Slade, get back in your unit." Slade smiled at him like they were friends, then looked back at Beckett. "Ride safe," he said, and it sounded like a threat delivered as a gift. The ambulance pulled out of the lot lights, strobing across the motel windows. Wyatt's small face appeared for 1 second behind the glass suit bag on his lap, eyes locked on Beckett until the vehicle turned and disappeared. And at the far end of the lot where shadow met the edge of the sick red sign, the woman from the dark sedan stood perfectly still. She did not follow the ambulance. She did not approach Beckett. She simply reached into her coat, pulled out a small white card, and placed it on the hood of the ice machine next to room 12. Then she turned and walked into the night without a sound, like someone who had been watching long enough to know exactly when to stop. Beckett waited 3 seconds, then crossed to the ice machine. The card had no name on the front, just a seal in the corner. Sharp, clean, official in a way that had nothing to do with diners or motels. On the back, a single phone number. Dre came beside him. "Who is she?" Beckett turned the card over once more, then slid it into his pocket. He did not answer because he did not know. But the seal on that card felt like the answer to a letter he had never read. A letter written 5 months ago by a woman who planned everything, who predicted everything, who had been running a chess game from a motel bed while the world thought she was helpless. Jolene Pryor was not waiting to be saved. She had been saving herself one piece at a time. And tonight, Beckett was not her hero. He was her witness. The county hospital sat off the highway like a concrete bunker, fluorescent and exhausted. The ambulance cut around to the ER bay lights, still flashing, and disappeared behind a rolling door. Beckett and Dre did not rush the entrance. Running made you look guilty. They parked, took off helmets, and walked in like two people who knew exactly where they were going and did not want anyone to panic about it. Inside, the waiting room smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. A television murmured above a wall of vending machines. A toddler cried in a plastic chair. An old man stared at the floor like it held answers nobody had thought to ask. The moment the receptionist saw their vests, her posture changed. "Can I help you?" she asked, already reaching for the phone at her desk without making it obvious. "We are here with the woman brought in by EMS," Beckett said, calm. "Clear. Jolene Pryor. She has a 6-year-old with her. We are not family. We just want to make sure the kid is not separated from his mom." The receptionist's eyes flicked to the no weapon sign, then back to their hands. "Sir, you cannot. We are not going past this desk," Dre said. "We are not asking for medical information. Just the kid. That is it." A security guard approached. Heavy belt-tired eyes. "Problem." "No problem," Beckett said, turning his palms out. "We are trying to prevent one." The security guard did not soften. "Vests have to come off." Beckett did not argue. He unzipped, slid his vest off, and folded it over his arm. Dre did the same. Underneath, they looked like ordinary people in worn jackets and road boots. The guard nodded once. "Sit. Do not wander." Beckett sat. Dre stayed standing for a second, scanning the hallways. Through the glass doors to the left, Deputy Slade walked in like he had been invited. No hurry, no stress, badge shining. He spoke to the triage nurse with an easy smile like he was a familiar nuisance they had to tolerate. Beckett watched the nurse's face change. She straightened, then glanced toward the waiting room as if she had been told to look for someone. Slade followed her gaze and saw Beckett. His smile did not break. Dre's voice dropped low. He is already working the staff. Before Beckett could answer, the female EMT from the motel appeared, moving fast, ponytail bouncing, as she scanned the waiting room. She spotted them and came over. "You followed," she said. "Not accusing, observing." "We kept distance," Beckett replied. She lowered her voice. "Your patient is in respiratory. They are doing imaging labs, the whole thing. She is worse than she looked." Beckett's stomach tightened. "And the kid?" The EMT's expression hardened. "That deputy tried to tell us the kid belongs with him. I told him no. Hospital social worker got involved." "Where is Wyatt right now?" "In a consult room off triage. Social worker is with him. He keeps asking for his mom." The EMT paused, then added something that shifted the ground beneath Beckett's feet. "The mother," she said carefully. "She asked for the social worker herself, before we even rolled in. In the ambulance, barely breathing, she told me to get social services involved and to put the deputy's name on a restricted list. She gave me his badge number from memory. She knew it by heart." Beckett stared at her. "She asked for that." "First words out of her mouth after we stabilized her oxygen," the EMT said. "Not her diagnosis, not her pain, the social worker, and the restriction. Like she had been rehearsing it." The EMT looked at Beckett like she wanted to ask a question but did not have the right to. Then she turned and walked back through the double doors. Dre leaned close. "She is not panicking. She is executing." Beckett did not answer, but the weight of that observation settled into him like a stone dropped into still water. Jolene Pryor was not a woman caught off guard by crisis. She was a woman who had been waiting for this particular night the way a general waits for a battle they have already mapped. Slade's voice carried from the triage desk, warm and concerned, and precisely calibrated for an audience of nurses. "I just want to make sure the boy is safe. His mom, she is not stable. Emotionally, she makes decisions she regrets. I am just here as a safety net." The triage nurse nodded along, but her eyes flickered with something that might have been doubt, or might have been compliance. It was hard to tell the difference in a building that ran on procedure and path of least resistance. Beckett watched Slade work the room and understood what he was seeing. Not a man with authority, a man with practice. Slade had done this before. The smile, the tone, the careful positioning of himself as helper rather than threat. Every word designed to make the listener feel that cooperation was the easiest path. The glass doors opened again, and Slade turned, still smiling, and walked directly toward the hallway that led to triage rooms. Nobody stopped him. The badge moved through the building like a key that opened doors it should not have been allowed to touch. 10 minutes passed before Ms. Farrow appeared. She was younger than Beckett expected. Early 30s, dark hair pulled back, eyes that carried the permanent fatigue of someone who had seen too many bad situations resolve into worse ones. She wore a hospital badge and carried a notebook that looked like it held more weight than paper should. She found Beckett and Dre near the vending machines. "You are the ones from the motel," she said. "Ma'am." "Not a question." Beckett nodded. "How is Wyatt?" Miss Farrow's mouth tightened. "Scared, quiet, holding a bag of cold soup like it is the only thing keeping him together." She paused. "His mother asked me to come see you." Beckett went still. "She asked you." Ms. Farrow's eyes sharpened. "She asked me to find the man in the vest who bought soup for her son. She said you would be in the lobby. She said you would not have left. She was right," Dre said. Ms. Farrow studied them both like she was deciding how much to trust strangers who looked like they belonged on a wanted poster. "She also told me, and I need you to listen carefully, she also told me that the deputy who followed the ambulance is not family. He is not a guardian. He has no legal relationship to the child, and she wants him on a restricted visitor list." Beckett felt the pieces clicking together. Every move Jolene had made since the motel was deliberate. The name on the wristband, the name given to the 911 dispatcher on a recorded line, the request for social services in the ambulance, the restricted visitor list. Each one a brick in a wall she was building with the only tools she had left. Words, records, witnesses. She was building a case from a hospital bed while her lungs failed. Ms. Farrow continued. She was very specific. She said his name, Deputy Slade. She gave his badge number. She described his behavior at the motel, and she described a pattern of control that she says has been going on for 2 years. I have documented everything she told me. Dre's voice was quiet. She has been planning this. Ms. Farrow looked at her. I do not know what she planned. I know what she told me, and I know that a woman who can barely breathe does not waste air on details unless those details matter. Beckett asked the only question that mattered. Can we see her? Ms. Farrow shook her head. She is with the ER team, oxygen imaging. But she asked for you specifically. She said she needs to tell you something before it gets worse. For what gets worse? Dre asked. Ms. Farrow did not answer that. She just turned and walked toward the double doors. They followed vests, folded over arms, boots quiet on the linoleum. The ER sounded like controlled chaos. Wheels clipped voices, alarms that started and stopped. A curtain shifted, and Ms. Farrow held it aside. Jolene lay on a gurney, propped at an angle, an oxygen mask pulled down to her chin so she could speak. Her skin was pale now, except for the fever flush high on her cheeks. Her eyes were glassy but sharp, sharper than they had any right to be. Wyatt sat in a chair beside her, the paper bag clutched in his lap, his feet not touching the floor. When he saw Beckett, his whole body loosened a fraction, like a rope that had been pulled too tight and found half an inch of slack. Jolene's eyes locked on Beckett. She did not smile. She did not thank him. She looked at him the way a chess player looks at a piece that has finally moved to the right square. Close the curtain, she said to Ms. Farrow. Ms. Farrow hesitated, then pulled it shut. Jolene spoke fast, not panicked, efficient, like a woman who knew her window was closing and refused to waste a syllable. I sent him to you, she said. Her voice was a rasp wrapped around iron. I knew you were coming through town. I saw the ride posted online 2 weeks ago. The route goes past Ruthie's diner. I taught Wyatt to find the biggest table and ask for soup. I put the wristband on so you would see the name. Beckett's chest tightened. You planned the coins. Jolene's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. I planned everything. She coughed, hard. The oxygen mask went back over her face and she breathed through it for several seconds, eyes closed, body shaking. When she pulled it down again, her voice was thinner, but her eyes were the same. There is a judge, she said. I wrote to her 5 months ago. Letters, everything he did, everything he threatened, everything I knew he would do if I tried to leave. She has them. She is watching. Beckett thought of the woman in the dark sedan, the card with the seal. Who is she? He asked. Jolene shook her head. I do not know her name. I wrote to a domestic violence court program. Someone responded. Someone took it seriously. They told me to document everything and wait for the right moment. This is the moment, Dre said. Jolene looked at her. This is the moment. She reached out and gripped Beckett's wrist. Her fingers were burning, trembling, but her grip was precise. He will try to take Wyatt, she said. He will use paperwork. He will use his badge. He will make the hospital afraid, and he will make everyone believe he is the reasonable one, and I am the unstable one. He has done it before with other women. I know because I found them. I found their names in court records at the library. Her breath caught, and another cough tore through her. When it passed, her eyes were wet, but not with self-pity, with fury. I need you to be the witness, she said. Not the hero, the witness. Everything he does tonight, you see it. You record it. You give it to the people who can use it. Beckett held her gaze. I understand. Jolene's eyes moved to Wyatt. Baby, come here. Wyatt climbed off the chair and stood beside the gurney. Jolene took his hand. If anyone asks your name, what do you say? Wyatt Pryor, the boy whispered. If anyone asks who Mike is, what do you say? Wyatt's voice trembled. Deputy Slade. Jolene squeezed his hand. That is right. You tell the truth. Always the truth. The truth is how we win. Wyatt nodded, eyes huge. Jolene looked back at Beckett and her face changed. The strategist faded and the mother appeared raw and terrified. If I cannot talk, she whispered, if they put me under, do not let him take my son. Please, Beckett did not promise what he could not control, but he promised what he could. I will not leave this building until Wyatt is safe. Jolene nodded once, her eyes closed. The oxygen mask went back on. A nurse pulled the curtain open and looked at them with the polite firmness of someone who needed them gone. "She needs rest," the nurse said. As they stepped out, Miss Farrow was waiting with her notebook pressed to her chest. "I heard everything she said quietly. It is documented." "Good," Beckett said, "because it is about to get loud." It did not take long. An hour after Jolene was moved to a monitored bed, the ER doctor pulled Beckett aside. Young, tired, careful with his words. Jolene Pryor came in respiratory distress. Her oxygen saturation has dropped again. "We think severe pneumonia, possible sepsis." Beckett's gut tightened. "Is she awake?" "Barely," the doctor said. "She is confused and struggling to breathe." "We are trying high-flow oxygen. If she does not improve, we may need to intubate." "Her son is here," Dre said. "I know," the doctor said. "Social work told me. That is actually why I am talking to you." Beckett waited. "We need consent if she becomes unable to consent," the doctor continued. "We need next of kin. Emergency consent is allowed if it is life-threatening, but it gets questioned later, and law enforcement is already circling." Deputy Slade Beckett said. The doctor's mouth tightened in a way that said he had dealt with that name before. "Yes, he is asking for access. He is asking who is with her. He is asking where the child is." "Is he family?" Dre asked. "No, he claims he is the guardian," Beckett said. The doctor looked between them. "Is he?" Beckett met his eyes. "He is the reason she has bruises under her sleeves." The doctor held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Tell social work and tell them fast. Because if he gets into her room when she cannot speak clearly, he will make her agree to anything." Beckett turned back toward Miss Farrow's office with a new weight in his chest. Wyatt was still in the chair. Blanket wrapped tight, cup of water untouched. The cold soup bag clutched like armor. His face lifted when he saw Beckett. "Is she okay?" Beckett did not lie big. He lied small, the kind you use to keep a kid from breaking. "She is getting help." Wyatt's eyes went glossy. "Can I give her the blanket?" Ms. Farrow reached out and squeezed Wyatt's shoulder. "We can bring her another one. This one stays with you." Wyatt nodded, then whispered, "He is coming back." Dre crouched slightly to his level, not smiling, not putting cheer where it did not belong. "Who is coming back?" Wyatt's mouth tightened. "Mike or the deputy. They always come back." It was the simplest description of a cycle of abuse Beckett had ever heard, and it came from a 6-year-old who did not even know the word for what he was describing. 20 minutes later, the pressure arrived. It started with the phones. The triage nurse's desk phone rang once, twice, then again before she could finish the first call. A receptionist on the admin side picked up, listened, and her face tightened. Security got called to the lobby again, not because anyone was fighting, but because the building could feel the mood shifting. A man in scrubs walked by, muttered, "Sheriff's office is blowing up the lines," and kept moving like he should not have said it. Dre watched the entrance. He is setting the narrative. The automatic doors opened and a group came in together. 3 men in work jackets, a woman with her hair tied in a bun, a teenager filming with his phone held high like a torch. They were not staff. They were not family. They stopped when they saw Beckett and Dre. One of the men pointed at them. That them. The teenager's camera swung toward Beckett's face. Dre stepped half a pace forward. "Calm. Stop filming the child. We are in a public lobby." The man in the work jacket scoffed. "We saw the post. Sheriff's page said a biker crew followed a woman and her kid from a diner. Said y'all are interfering with law enforcement." Dre's eyes went colder. "You believe everything you scroll." The teenager smiled and leaned in. "Camera still up. Say something for the video." Beckett looked at the phone, then at the kid's office door where Wyatt might be listening. "Put it down." "No," the teenager said, grin sharpening. "Make me." Security came fast this time. 2 guards. The lead guard lifted his hands and planted himself between them like a wall. "Everyone needs to calm down." "We are calm," Beckett said. "They are filming a minor." The woman with the bun snapped. "We are citizens. We have a right to know what is happening in our hospital." The guard turned on her. "Ma'am, you need to leave." The crowd grumbled as they were escorted toward the doors, but not before the teenager called out loud enough for half the lobby to hear. "Y'all kidnapped that kid from the diner." Beckett did not answer. Silence was safer than a sentence cut into a headline. As the door shut, Dre's phone buzzed. She checked it, then turned the screen so Beckett could see. A local Facebook page. A screenshot of the sheriff's office post. The wording was slick. Deputy responding to report of suspicious bikers harassing a vulnerable mother and child. Please contact the sheriff's office with any information. No names, no details, just enough to light a fuse. Dre's jaw tightened. He is painting us as predators. Beckett's face stayed flat. He is painting Wyatt as evidence. Ms. Farrow's office door opened. She stepped out, closing it behind her so the lobby voices could not reach the kid. Her eyes looked tired now. The way people look when they realize the problem is not paperwork anymore. We have an issue, she said. Beckett did not move closer. Tell me, the ER doctor says Jolene is intubated. Ms. Farrow said quietly. She is sedated. She cannot speak. She cannot make decisions. Dre's hands clenched once. Is she stable? Not yet. They are moving her to ICU. Ms. Farrow hesitated, then forced it out. The deputy called and told the ICU charge nurse that he is Jolene's guardian. He asked what room she will be in. Beckett's throat tightened. He is not getting near her. I can put a restricted visitor note, Ms. Farrow said. But he is law enforcement. He can push. He can intimidate staff. He is already doing it. Dre stepped closer, voice controlled but urgent. Who is Jolene's next of kin? Ms. Farrow shook her head. She listed nobody. Beckett thought of the card in his pocket, the seal, the number, the voice that might belong to the judge Jolene had written to 5 months ago. He did not pull the card out. Not yet. He did not know who that voice belonged to, and he was not going to hand a child over to mystery either. But he could use it like a lever, put the restricted note, Beckett said, and log that he tried to remove Wyatt with unverified paperwork. He has not tried paperwork yet, Ms. Farrow said. He will, Beckett replied. Jolene told us. She predicted every move he would make tonight. She has been right about all of them. Ms. Farrow looked at him with an expression that mixed respect with exhaustion. I already documented everything from her statement, Ms. Farrow said. The supervisor documented it. Patient advocate documented it. But documentation does not stop a man who wants control. It stops him later, Dre said. When it matters. The lobby had barely settled when Deputy Slade walked through the doors carrying a folder, like it was a weapon nobody could take from him. 2 uniformed deputies came behind him. One was Deputy Harlan from the motel, face tight, like he would rather be anywhere else. The other was younger eyes glued to Slade like he was learning what loyalty looked like. Slade did not scan the room this time. He walked straight to Ms. Farrow's office door. I have got it, he said, voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Paperwork is done, Sohums. Farrow stood. Deputy, I told you we need documentation. Slade flipped the folder open and shoved the first page toward her. Here, emergency protective custody, signed. Beckett stepped closer but not into the doorway. Let me see it. Slade did not look at him. You are not part of this. Dre's voice stayed calm. We are witnesses. Mr. Farrow's eyes moved across the page, lips parting. This is not a juvenile judge. This is a magistrate. Slade's smile stayed. Still a judge. Ms. Farrow swallowed. Not for this. This is not. Slade leaned in, lowering his voice like he was doing her a favor. Ms. Farrow, do you want to be the reason a child stays with an unstable mother in a biker gang instead of going someplace safe? Because that is how it will be written. Wyatt shrank into the chair behind her, blanket pulled tighter. Dre stepped to the side and lifted her phone. We need the clerk confirmation number. Slade's eyes snapped to her. Put that away. Dre did not move. Confirmation number? Deputy Harlan cleared his throat. Slade, maybe we do this by the book. Slade's smile did not reach him. This is the book. Beckett addressed Ms. Farrow, not Slade. Ask for the nursing supervisor and patient advocate right now. Ms. Farrow's face tightened. She nodded and turned toward the hallway, raising her voice. I need Supervisor Reynolds and patient advocate on duty, please. Now, Slade's smile slipped into irritation. You do not get to stall. Ms. Farrow faced him. I do. This paperwork does not match our requirements, and this child is under hospital supervision until it does. Supervisor Reynolds arrived, a woman in dark scrubs with a badge and a posture that said she had shut down 1,000 arguments in her career. The patient advocate came with her older, carrying a clipboard like it was a shield. What is happening? Reynolds asked. Slade put on his best official voice. Emergency custody order. I am taking the child. Reynolds looked at Ms. Farrow. Is that correct? Ms. Farrow handed over the paper. It is signed by a magistrate, not juvenile court, and it does not list the immediate danger. It is vague. Reynolds' eyes moved fast across the page. Then she looked at the patient advocate. Call legal right now and call the clerk to verify. Slade's smile tightened. You are refusing a judge's order. I am verifying it. That is not refusal. The patient advocate stepped aside and started dialing. Dre remained still, phone recording low by her thigh. The patient advocate returned phone still at his ear, eyes narrowed. Clerk says there is no emergency custody filed under Jolene Pryor's case, no record. Reynolds turned to Slade. Deputy, this document is not verified. You are not removing this child. Slade's smile flickered. Something sharp underneath. It will be verified. Not tonight, Reynolds said. Slade stared at her like he wanted to burn the moment into memory. Then he looked at Wyatt again, and his voice dropped to a private threat wrapped in gentleness. Buddy, he said, I will be back. Wyatt did not answer. He just pulled the blanket higher. Slade tucked the folder under his arm and stepped back like a man choosing peace. Have it your way, he said, and walked out with his deputies. Deputy Harlan lingered half a second, eyes meeting Beckett's. A tired apology in them. Then followed. When the doors closed, the room exhaled. Reynolds looked at Beckett and Dre. You cannot be in staff areas. You cannot threaten anyone. But if you saw him touch that child or that woman, anything you tell me. Not security, me. Beckett nodded once. He already did. Dre's phone lowered. We have it. The supervisor's eyes tightened. Good. The reprieve lasted 40 minutes. Dre used every second. She called Nora, the club's attorney, and fed her everything. Names times the fake document, the clerk denial the recordings. Nora did not panic. She gave instructions like she was loading a weapon. Get the hospital to preserve all footage. Request it in writing. Do not let them delete anything from the staff quarters. And get statements from every hospital employee who interacted with Slade. Beckett worked the card differently. He stepped toward the vending machines, shielding his phone with his body, and dialed the number. 1 ring. 2. The same voice answered. Professional, no warmth, no impatience. Office, Beckett kept it clean. I was given this number at County Hospital. A deputy is trying to remove a child from hospital care without documentation. Mother is in active respiratory treatment. She is intubated and sedated. Social worker is involved. Silence. A beat too long, then softer. Is the deputy named Slade? Beckett's eyes narrowed. Yes, another small pause. Do not confront him. Do not touch him. Keep the child in the hospital's custody. Make sure the hospital documents everything. Ask for the nursing supervisor and the patient advocate. Who are you? Beckett asked. Someone who does not want that child to disappear, the voice replied. If Slade returns with paperwork, write it carefully. If it is not signed by a judge with jurisdiction, it is not worth the paper. If it is signed, ask for the court clerk's confirmation number. He left to get paperwork, Beckett said. I know, the voice said, and there was nothing mystical about it. Just certainty. And he will be back soon. The line clicked dead. Dre watched him put the phone away. That did not sound like a friend. No, Beckett said. It sounded like somebody who has been waiting. Somebody Jolene found first. The building settled into an uneasy calm. 2 of their club guys had walked in earlier, vests off, hair tucked under ball caps, faces neutral. Boone and Colt sat apart like strangers watching the hallway and the doors. The ER doctor found Beckett again. Face grave. She is intubated, he said. Sedated. We are moving her to ICU. If she stabilizes, we keep her on the ventilator for at least 24 hours. Is she going to make it? Dre asked. The doctor did not give false comfort. We are doing everything we can, but she waited too long and she is fighting more than pneumonia. Her immune system was already compromised. Stress, malnutrition, likely chronic sleep deprivation. This did not happen overnight. No, Beckett said. It happened over 2 years. The doctor held his gaze. Then you understand what she was fighting even before the infection. Ms. Farrow kept Wyatt in her office. The boy sat in the same chair, blanket wrapped tight, cold soup bag in his lap. His eyes tracked every sound in the hallway with the precision of a child who had learned that quiet footsteps were more dangerous than loud ones. "Is she sleeping?" Wyatt asked when Miss Farrow checked on him for the fourth time. "She is resting," Miss Farrow said carefully. "The machines are helping her breathe." Wyatt stared at the door. "He is going to come back, and he is going to bring new paper, and everyone is going to believe him because he has a badge, and we do not have anything." Ms. Farrow crouched to his level. "You have me, you have the supervisor, you have records." Wyatt's eyes did not change. Records did not keep him out last time. Beckett heard the exchange from the hallway and felt the truth of it land in his chest. The boy was 6 years old, and he already understood that systems protected themselves before they protected people. Then the fire alarm chirped once. Not the full building alarm, just a sharp, sudden beep that made heads turn. A moment later, another beep, a different tone from somewhere deeper in the hospital, like a door alarm. Security guards shifted instinctively. One turned his head toward the corridor, another looked toward the admin wing. The administrator, who had been hovering near the lobby, took out his phone, suddenly focused elsewhere. Dre's head snapped toward the staff corridor. "That is not a real alarm." Beckett felt the room shift before he saw it happen. The attention of every person in the building pulled in 3 directions at once. Security toward the alarm nurses, toward their stations, administrators, toward their phones. And in the gap that opened, Deputy Slade appeared near the triage desk. Not from the main entrance, from the side corridor near radiology. He had come through a staff door. He was already inside. He moved fast, but not frantic. Purposeful. He passed Miss Farrow's office door, opened it without knocking, and his voice filled the small room with warmth that cut like wire. "Hey, buddy, we have got to go. Your mom wants you somewhere safe." Wyatt's whole body went rigid. Ms. Farrow stood immediately. "Deputy, this child is under hospital supervision." Slade's hand landed on Wyatt's shoulder, gentle pressure that made the boy flinch even though the touch looked kind. "Farrow, the building has an alarm going. I am moving him to safety. That is my job." Mrs. Farrow's voice sharpened. "That is not what this is." But Slade was already guiding Wyatt toward the door. Not pulling, not grabbing, just pressure. The kind that does not leave marks, but leaves no choice. Wyatt's eyes found Beckett through the doorway. Wide, terrified. The suit bag slipped from his hands and hit the floor. Beckett took a step forward. Dre caught his sleeve with 2 fingers. "Just enough." "If you grab him," she whispered, "we are the story." Beckett's jaw flexed so hard it hurt. He forced himself to stop. Slade turned the moment into movement. He walked Wyatt not toward the main doors where cameras were, but toward the side corridor near radiology, an exit that led to the staff parking lot, the same way he had come in. Ms. Farrow followed Torn, looking back at Reynolds as if begging for someone to stop it. Reynolds was already turning toward the alarm sound. The administrator was speaking into his phone. Security was splitting their attention between the alarm and the lobby. It was engineered chaos. Just enough to blur consent. Just enough to make people choose the easiest problem to solve. Beckett moved fast without running. He cut through the lobby at an angle to keep eyes off him. Dre mirrored him. Boone and Colt stood quietly, drifting into positions that gave them sight lines without forming a group. Beckett reached the radiology corridor just in time to see the back of Wyatt's blanket disappearing through a set of doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Slade was taking him through the staff parking route. Dre's voice was tight. "We cannot go through that door." Beckett's eyes locked on the small gap before the door shut. "Then we go around." They hustled out the main entrance, moving with purpose but not panic. Helmets in hand, boots hitting pavement. The cold slapped their faces. Across the lot, a sheriff's unit sat idling near the edge. Not Slade's, a different one, positioned like a blocker. Beckett's eyes snapped to the far side of the building. A black SUV rolled slowly out from the staff exit lane. Turning without hurry, Slade behind the wheel, Wyatt in the passenger seat, blanket up to his chin, face pressed to the glass. Wyatt's eyes met Beckett's for a split second. Not crying, beyond crying, the face of a child who had been right about what would happen and wished more than anything that he had been wrong. Then Slade raised one hand in a casual wave, smiling through the windshield like he had just picked up groceries. And the SUV turned onto the service road and disappeared into traffic. Dre's breath came out sharp. He took him. Beckett stood still, forcing his body to stay controlled even while something violent rose in his chest. He pulled his phone out, opened the camera, and zoomed in on the taillights just as the SUV hit the street lamp. Glow. The plate came into focus for half a second. Enough. He snapped the photo, then he turned to Dre and said low and steady, "Now we track smart. No hero moves, no mistakes." The cold hit harder outside the hospital, like the night was punishing them for losing control for even a second. Beckett did not chase the SUV. He did not gun an engine. He stood on the sidewalk with Dre and forced his breathing to slow while his phone held the only clean thing they had, an image of Slade's plate. Dre's voice shook with anger she was swallowing whole. He took him right out of a hospital. Beckett zoomed in on the photo again, making sure it was sharp. He wanted a chase, he wanted a clip. He wanted us to be loud. And now Dre asked, "Now we make him paperwork." They started toward their bikes. Dre crouched, ran her hand along the rear brake line, and her face changed. "Beckett," she said, quiet. He came to her side. A thin, wet sheen glinted under the parking lot light where there should not have been any. Not a full cut, a nick. Just enough to make a line fail when the pressure was high. A slow death disguised as bad luck. Dre checked Beckett's bike. Same thing, same spot, same careful damage. "They touched our bikes," Dre said. Her voice was flat now, past anger, into something colder. Beckett stared at it for a beat. Then he pushed the anger down and spoke like a man reading a checklist. "Do not ride. We walk. We drive. Not our bikes. Not tonight." Boone appeared at the edge of the lot. He did not ask questions. He pointed with his chin. "Rental place by the highway. Open late." Beckett nodded. "You and Colt stay near the hospital. Quiet. Watch. If Slade comes back and tries anything with ICU or with Jolene's chart, you record names, times, and who let him in." Boone's eyes narrowed. "He will blame us. Let him. Just do not give him a reason." Dre looked back through the glass doors. The lobby still had people inside. Phones up. Faces bright with righteousness. Wyatt's small body was not among them anymore. Her voice went thin. "Ms. Farrow is going to blame herself." Beckett did not answer. He was already pulling out the card. The sill caught the parking lot light. Sharp. Official. Clean. He dialed the number. The voice answered on the first ring, like she had been sitting with the phone in her hand. "Yes, he took the child," Beckett said. "Hospital staff exit. County Fleet SUV. We have the plate. He may be heading to a property called Maple Ridge." Silence. One full second. Then for the first time, the voice sounded something other than controlled. It sounded angry. "I know Maple Ridge. Then stop him." Dre snapped, unable to hold it in. The voice did not acknowledge the snap. She spoke to Beckett like this was a procedure that only worked if people followed it exactly. "Go to the state police duty desk, not the sheriff. Tell them you are reporting unlawful removal of a minor from a hospital by a county deputy with unverified custody documentation. Provide the plate photo. Provide witness names. Tell them to contact my office." Beckett's eyes narrowed. "What office?" "You will know in 5 minutes. An investigator will meet you at the state police barracks. Do not go to Maple Ridge. Do not attempt to retrieve the child yourself." Dre's hands clenched. "He is a kid. And that is why you do not turn this into a gunfight," the voice replied. "Colder now. Drive to the barracks. Now." The line went dead. Dre exhaled hard. "She is ordering us." Beckett looked at the card one more time. The seal, the number, the certainty in that voice. And behind all of it, the image of Jolene in a hospital bed, barely breathing, tubes and tape, and machines still somehow running the board. "She is not ordering us," Beckett said. "She is finishing what Jolene started." They did not use their bikes. They did not risk the brake lines. Boone drove a plain rental sedan off the highway lot. No logos, no roar, nothing that looked like a pack. Beckett sat in the passenger seat with his phone ready. Dre rode in back, collecting notes, timestamps, names, making the chaos into a timeline. Every detail that felt small was a nail they could drive later. And somewhere ahead of them in the dark, a 6-year-old boy sat in a county SUV with a blanket pulled to his chin, holding on to the memory of a promise made by a man in a diner who had bought him soup. And behind them all, silent and sedated and breathing through a machine, Jolene Pryor lay in an ICU bed with a wristband that carried her real name. The name she had chosen to wear like a flag. The name she had sent her son into a room full of strangers to deliver. The name that started everything. Pryor. The state police barracks sat off a county road that did not bother with streetlights. A flat concrete building with a flagpole and a parking lot that looked like it had been designed to discourage visitors. Fluorescent light leaked through narrow windows like the building was trying not to be noticed. Boone pulled the rental sedan into the lot and killed the engine. Nobody spoke for a second. The dashboard clock read 1:47 in the morning, and the silence had the weight of people who had been running on adrenaline for hours and suddenly had nowhere to sprint. Beckett got out first. The cold was different here. Rural cold. The kind that did not bounce off buildings but came straight at you from open fields with nothing to slow it down. Inside, the duty sergeant met them at the counter. Mid-50s crew cut going gray-faced that did not care about patches or rumors or the kind of night anyone else was having. He looked at them the way a man looks at paperwork that just landed on his desk at the wrong hour. "What is this about?" he asked. Beckett put his phone down on the counter screen showing the plate photo. A child was removed from county hospital by Deputy Slade using unverified custody paperwork. Mother is sedated in ICU. The deputy exited through a staff corridor. Hospital staff have documented it. We are reporting it here because we cannot report it to the sheriff's office. The sergeant's eyes tightened at the last part. He understood what it meant without needing it explained. "You have a case number. We are making one," Dre said. The sergeant stared at them a second longer, then nodded toward a side room. "In here." They sat at a metal table under lights that made everything look like evidence. Beckett gave the story without heat. Facts only. Dre gave names and times. Boone handed over a list of witnesses he had been building on his phone since the diner. The sergeant asked questions like he was constructing a building one brick at a time. No emotion, no shortcuts. Just the architecture of a case that needed to stand. Halfway through, the door opened, and a man stepped in wearing plain clothes and an ID clipped to his belt. He was not sheriff. He was not hospital. He looked like someone who lived inside documents and decisions the way other people lived inside houses. He introduced himself without flourish. "Investigator Voss, County Circuit." Dre's eyes narrowed. "Circuit Court." Voss's gaze went to Beckett. "You spoke with my judge." Beckett's jaw tightened. "So she is a judge." Voss did not confirm it directly. He did not have to. The confirmation was in his presence at 1:47 in the morning, in a state police barracks wearing plain clothes and carrying a folder that looked like it had been packed before the phone call. "Give me everything you have," he said, and his voice carried a kind of authority that did not need volume. Beckett slid his phone across the table. Plate photo video from the hospital hallway, audio from the 911 call, notes from Ruthie at the diner, the motel manager's statement, Supervisor Reynolds' documentation. Voss watched the plate image and something in his face hardened. "Fleet vehicle," he said. "County pool. Not supposed to leave city limits without sign out." Dre leaned forward. "So either he logged it or he did not. Either way, it is traceable," the sergeant said. Voss looked at Beckett. "You mentioned a property. Maple Ridge, the older deputy from the motel told us," Beckett said. "He called. Said Slade was heading there. Said it is a private property the sheriff's office uses for off-the-books meetings." Voss's eyes did not change, but his voice dropped a register. "Do not say that name loudly." The duty sergeant frowned. "You know that place." Voss did not answer him. He looked at Beckett. "You did the right thing by not chasing." Beckett's voice stayed steady. "We do not care about being right. We care about the kid." Voss nodded once. "Then here's what happens." He pulled out a folder of his own. Real paper. Real letterhead. Not something printed in a panic. Emergency petition, child welfare, judicial review at first light, and an immediate directive to locate and return the minor to hospital custody pending investigation. Dre's breath caught. "You can do that tonight." Voss looked at her like she had forgotten what a judge could do in the dark when the evidence was clean and the cause was clear. "My judge can." He stood. "You are going to stay available for statements. You are going to keep your people calm. And you are going to let state police do the retrieval." Beckett held his gaze. "If they find him," Voss's voice did not soften, "they will. The barracks clock read 2:41 when the duty sergeant pushed his chair back and started moving with a different kind of speed. Not panic, procedure. He slid the directive into a plastic sleeve, handed it to a trooper with a fresh cup of coffee, and gave instructions that turned paper into motion. Get a unit with a child seat, call CPS duty line, pull every address associated with Deputy Slade, home, family, county property, everything. Voss stood near the doorway like a hinge between the room and the road phone to his ear, speaking in short, controlled sentences. Beckett sat at the metal table and watched men and paper turn into movement. Dre's pen scratched as she tightened the timeline again. Diner, motel, ambulance, hospital, staff corridor, radiology exit, plate photo, preservation request, online post, crowd. Every detail that felt small was a nail you could drive later. Boone finally spoke, low. I could be there in 8 minutes. Beckett did not look at him. And then what? Boone's mouth tightened. Then I take the kid. With what Beckett asked. Your hands, your pride. Boone's eyes flashed. With my spine. Beckett's voice stayed flat. You walk into sheriff property and take a child from a deputy, you give him the only thing he needs, a reason. Boone's jaw worked. He hated it, but he heard it. Colt's voice came quiet from the corner. So we wait. Beckett nodded once. We wait, and we do not let our anger write his ending. A minute later, Dre's phone buzzed with a message. She read it, then looked up, face tight. Ruthie, she said. Sheriff's office came into the diner. Told her to hand over footage. Beckett's stomach dropped. She did. Dre shook her head. She told them it is preserved for counsel. They threatened her. Boone's hands clenched. We go there. No, Beckett said. We do not leave this barracks, not until Wyatt is located. Dre's eyes flicked to the duty sergeant's empty chair. If they are leaning on the diner, they are leaning on the motel too. Beckett stared at the evidence bag with his phone inside it. Let them lean. Everything they do becomes pattern. The clock moves slow. 3:08, 3:19, 3:27. And at 3:31, a trooper stepped into the room with a portable radio and set it on the table without a word. The duty sergeant's voice crackled through it, clipped and controlled. We are on scene. Visual on County Fleet SUV. 2 additional county units present. No lights. Dre's breath caught. Boone stood without realizing it. Beckett did not move. He forced himself to listen. The radio hissed. Approaching property line. Establishing perimeter. A pause. Then, contact. Subject identified as Deputy Slade. He is presenting paperwork. Voss's voice cut in over another channel. Calm and cold. Do not accept verbal claims. Execute directive. Confirm minor's location. Beckett closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them again. He pictured Maple Ridge without ever seeing it. Dark trees, a lodge set back from the road. A man with a badge, standing in a doorway, smiling, holding paper like it was a shield. And somewhere inside, a 6-year-old boy in a blanket, sitting in a room that smelled like smoke and authority, waiting for someone to come. The radio crackled. Slade refusing entry. State's property is under sheriff jurisdiction. Another voice. Steady. State directive supersedes. We are here for the minor. Beckett's hands were flat on the table, still visible. Like he could prove to himself he was not the kind of man who exploded. Dre whispered, please. A longer pause than before. The radio hissed with dead air that felt alive. Then, we have visual on the minor through front window. He appears unharmed. He is seated, blanket around shoulders. Beckett's throat tightened so hard it hurt. Boone exhaled like he had been holding air for hours. Voss's voice came sharper. Retrieve, Ursha. Burst of static. Then, Slade is stepping back. He is recording with his phone. He is stating this is unlawful. Another pause. That the words came plain and clear through the small speaker on the metal table in a room that smelled like burnt coffee and procedure. Minor is in our custody. Dre's eyes filled immediately. She wiped them fast like she was angry at them for showing. Beckett did not move for a full second. He could not. His spine felt locked. The radio continued. Transporting to barracks, CPP S on route. Slade is not detained at this time. He is being instructed not to contact the child or the mother. Beckett's jaw flexed at the last part. Not detained, not yet. But Wyatt was coming back. Dre leaned forward, voice low and shaking. Bring him to his mom. He will try again. Beckett said quietly. If he has not stopped properly, he will try again. Voss's voice came through the radio one more time, quieter now. Secure chain of custody, document minor's condition, photograph any marks, collect minor statement with CPS present, then hospital. Beckett stared at the ceiling for a beat, as if he could see through it to the road they were driving. The trooper's hands steady on the wheel, the child's seat buckled, the blanket held tight. At 412, headlights cut across the barracks lot. A state unit pulled in, then another. A trooper opened the back door and Wyatt stepped out slowly, blanket dragging like it was too heavy for him. His face was pale, his hair was messy, his eyes looked too old for any age, let alone 6. A woman in a plain coat walked beside him. CPS duty worker, badge visible, posture careful, Miss Tierney. She kept her hand near his shoulder but did not grab, letting him feel he still owned his body. Wyatt did not run to Beckett. He did not even take a full step toward him. He just looked at Beckett like he was checking if promises still existed after midnight. Beckett crouched slightly without crowding him. Hey, you are safe. Wyatt's lower lip trembled. He forced words out like they were stuck behind something heavy. He said You were going to jail. Beckett kept his face calm. I am right here. Wyatt's eyes filled, but he did not cry loud. He whispered. He said, my mom does not want me. Dre's breath hitched. She did not step closer. She did not grab him. She stayed still so she would not scare him. Beckett felt something hot rise in his chest and forced it down until it was just a steady voice. He lied. That is what he does. Wyatt stared at him, searching, trying to find the edge where truth ended and comfort began. Ms. Tierney spoke gently. Wyatt, we are going to take you back to the hospital so you can be near your mom. You will have people with you the whole time. Wyatt's eyes snapped toward the road. Fear flaring. He can take me again. Beckett did not promise forever. He promised tonight. Not tonight, not while we are standing here. The ride back to the hospital was quiet. No engines, no pack. Just a state unit in front, a plain sedan behind, and the kind of silence that happens when everyone is afraid a single wrong word will undo the only thing that matters. Wyatt sat in the child seat in the trooper's cruiser. Blanket tucked under his chin, hands clenched in the fabric. Ms. Tierney rode in the passenger seat, turned half around. Wyatt, do you remember the address where you were tanning tonight? Wyatt's eyes stayed on the window. Maple Ridge. Who took you there? Wyatt swallowed. Then he said it. The word his mother had taught him to say when it mattered. Not Mike, not the deputy. The truth? Deputy Slade. Dre, riding in the sedan behind them, leaned forward when Beckett told her. She taught him that, Dre said. She taught him exactly what to say and when to say it. Beckett did not answer. He kept his eye on the taillights ahead and thought about a woman lying in an ICU bed, breathing through a machine who had somehow managed to arm her 6-year-old son with the only weapon that mattered in a system built on words and records. The truth, spoken clearly, with the right name, to the right people. When they reached the hospital, the front entrance looked different, tighter. 2 state troopers stood by the doors. Hospital security hovered closer than before. The lobby had been cleared of civilians. The Facebook crowd was gone. The administrator stood near the reception desk, speaking into her phone with the expression of someone whose night had become a legal event. Wyatt stepped out of the cruiser slowly. Ms. Tierney stayed beside him. His blanket dragged on the pavement. Inside, Supervisor Reynolds appeared behind the triage desk. Her eyes went to Wyatt and her face did something complicated. Relief and guilt and exhaustion all at once. He is back, she said, like she needed to hear herself say it. Ms. Farrow came from the staff corridor. She saw Wyatt and stopped. Her face crumpled for a second before she caught it. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. Wyatt hesitated, then took a half step toward her. Not because he trusted hospitals now, but because Ms. Farrow was the last adult who had tried to keep him from disappearing. Ms. Farrow crouched. I am so sorry. Wyatt shook his head fast. He said you gave me away. Ms. Farrow's eyes filled. I did not. I tried to stop it. I am sorry you got scared. Wyatt nodded. Small. Like apology was a language he understood too well. Ms. Tierney guided them toward the ICU corridor. Not fast, not slow, controlled. A trooper walked ahead, another behind. Main halls only, no side exits, no shortcuts. Every step documented by the simple fact that there were too many professional eyes on it now. They stopped at the glass panel outside Jolene's room. Beyond it, Jolene lay still under white sheets. Tubes, tape, a machine breathing for her. Her hair was brushed back from her face and her skin was pale now, without the fever flush. The bruising on her forearm was visible where the hospital gown sleeve ended, ugly against hospital white. Wyatt pressed close to the glass, not touching it, just hovering, like he was afraid the room would punish him for wanting to be closer. "Mom," he whispered. No response, just the steady rhythm of the machine. Wyatt's voice cracked. "I got soup," he said, and then his face broke and he swallowed hard like the words cost more than the coins ever did. "I tried." Ms. Tierney knelt beside him, letting him have his moment without making it a performance. Dre turned away for a second, eyes wet, jaw clenched. Beckett stood still, hands down, watching the child and the woman in the machine that kept her alive, and feeling the name Pryor pulsing in his chest like an old bruise that had never healed because he had never let anyone touch it long enough to try. Voss appeared beside him, low enough that only Beckett heard. "Why did that name hit you in the diner?" Beckett did not answer immediately. He watched Wyatt whisper to the glass like it was a door he could not open. Then he said it. Quiet. Because some truths only come out when you stop protecting yourself from them. "Because I knew a Pryor." Voss's eyes did not move. "Family." Beckett's jaw flexed. "Brother, not by blood." Voss held his gaze. "Tell me the truth, Beckett, not the story." Beckett exhaled once. "He rode with us. Name was Dex Pryor. He died 7 years ago on a highway not far from here. Before he left, he made me promise something about his people. I did not keep it. Voss did not ask for drama." "And Jolene?" Beckett stared through the glass. "I did not know. Not until tonight. Not until I saw the wristband." Voss nodded once, like that was enough for now. "You say that in a statement. Carefully. Facts, no mythology?" Beckett's voice stayed flat. "I can do facts." Footsteps approached from the main corridor. Heavier, more official. Sheriff Loomis walked into the ICU wing like he owned the county and the night, and every decision made inside both. He was a heavier man, older, calm in the way powerful people get calm when they are used to rooms bending around them. 2 county deputies flanked him, and behind them Deputy Slade. Posture rigid, smile gone. He was not trying to charm anymore. He was trying to win by weight. Loomis's voice carried just enough to fill the corridor without echoing. "My deputy acted in good faith. Your people have overreached." A voice answered from behind the state troopers before anyone else could respond. "You do not get to lecture me about good faith." And then she was there. The woman from the dark sedan. The woman from the diner corner. The woman who had left a card on an ice machine and answered a phone at 2 in the morning with the single word "office" and spoken with a certainty that bent the air around it. She walked into the corridor in a dark coat with the kind of stillness that did not need volume or badges or performances. Investigator Voss stepped aside as if making room for something that outranked him by nature rather than title. Slade's face changed. The remnants of his smile fell away like paint peeling off a wall that had been wet too long. He recognized her, and the recognition did not bring comfort. Loomis's gaze moved to her and his jaw tightened. He knew her too. Voss did not introduce her. He did not have to. He spoke to Loomis like he was reading from procedure. Circuit has assumed jurisdiction due to conflict of interest and credible evidence of falsified custody documentation. Loomis's voice stayed polite but turned icy. "Conflict of interest." The woman spoke. Her voice was the same one from the phone. Controlled. Precise. Carrying the weight of 5 months of letters and patience, and a plan that had been built by a 28-year-old mother in a motel room with a fever and a pen and nothing else. Deputy Slade's involvement with the mother and child, she said. His actions at the hospital, the unfiled order presented to staff, the removal through a staff exit while the mother was sedated. "That is enough," Slade said. "Your Honor," she said, and the 2 words landed like a gavel. "Do not address me." Slade's jaw flexed. "I was protecting a child." You were controlling a child, she replied. There is a difference, us. Wyatt's eyes stayed locked on Beckett now, because the adults had turned dangerous again, and he did not know which uniforms meant safety. Miss Tierney leaned down to him. We are going to take you to a safe room. You stay with me. Wyatt nodded quickly. Desperate, Loomis stepped closer, voice tight. With respect, Judge. This is my county. You are creating a spectacle. Judge Castellan did not react to the word. The spectacle was created when your deputy turned a hospital into a hunting ground. Slade's face twisted. There is a lot of misinformation that being pushed by. Voss cut him off without raising his voice. Deputy Slade, you are under directive not to contact the minor or attempt access to the mother. Violate it, and you will be detained. Slade stared at Voss like he wanted to peel the words off him with his hands. Then his eyes flicked to Wyatt again, and he softened his tone like a weapon changing shape. Wyatt, he said gently, come on, buddy. Let us not make this scary. Wyatt's breath caught. He did not move. The blanket trembled in his fist. Beckett's voice stayed low. Do not talk to him. Slade's eyes snapped to Beckett. You do not get to. Judge Castellan looked at Slade once, not approving, not disapproving, measuring. Stop speaking to the child, she said. Slade's smile cracked for the first time that night. Not fully, just enough to show the anger underneath like bones showing through skin. He stepped back half a pace. Ms. Tierney guided Wyatt toward the consult room. The troopers formed a quiet corridor around them, not dramatic, just bodies placed where bodies needed to be. Loomis watched Wyatt disappear down the hall, then turned to the judge. This is not finished. No, Judge Castellan replied. Now it is started properly. Loomis stared at her, then made the calculation every man in power eventually makes. Losing here would look worse than leaving. He nodded once, stiff, then turned. Slade did not. Slade stood still for one last second, staring down the hall toward the consult room where Wyatt had gone. His face was stripped now. No smile, no warmth, no performance. Just the raw architecture of a man who had spent years controlling rooms and people and outcomes, and was watching all of it slip through his fingers on a single night because a woman in a motel bed had written letters. He leaned toward Beckett, voice low enough to slip under the hospital's quiet rule. You do not know what you are doing. You are picking a fight you cannot win. Beckett did not react with his body. He reacted with one sentence. Stay away from the child. Slade's mouth twisted into something close to a smile. Or what? Judge Castellan's voice cut through, calm and lethal. Deputy Slade, out, now. For the first time that night, Slade obeyed without a performance. He turned and walked away with shoulders tight. Every step a promise. Loomis followed. His deputies fell in behind him like an entourage leaving a stage they had not been able to command. The corridor exhaled. Judge Castellan watched them go. Then she turned to that Voss. He will try to access her chart again. He will try to build a counter-narrative. He will try to find someone in this building willing to help him. Move faster than he does. Voss nodded. Warren is being drafted. For Slade. And for anyone who interferes. A nurse rushed out from the ICU station breathless. Judge investigator, someone just attempted to access Jolene Pryor's chart restrictions again. It flagged. County code. Voss's eyes went hard. Right now, 2 minutes ago, the nurse said. Judge Castellan turned her head toward the lobby doors that Slade had walked through, and her voice did not rise, but it sharpened like a blade finding its edge. Stop him. 2 state troopers moved fast out the entrance. No sirens, no running, just direct controlled speed. Beckett watched through the glass. Outside under the lot lights, Slade reached his SUV. He pulled the driver door open, calm as if nothing mattered. One trooper approached from the left, another from the right. Slade turned, still trying the smile. Phone in his hand. The trooper spoke, voice firm even through the glass. Deputy Slade stepped away from the vehicle. Slade lifted his hand slightly as if offended. What is this about? Step away. Slade's smile tightened. He glanced once toward the hospital doors, toward the judge, then back to the troopers. He said something Beckett could not hear. Then the trooper reached for his wrist. Slade's arm jerked, fast, instinctive, like he was going to pull away. Like he was going to turn it into resistance on camera. The second trooper was already there. Slade's shoulder hit the SUV. His phone skittered on the pavement. The cuffs came out, and Beckett watched the metal close around the wrist that had squeezed Jolene's arm, that had gripped Wyatt's shoulder, that had signed papers nobody had filed. For the first time since the diner, the man with the badge looked exactly like what he was. Not authority, a problem being handled. Inside the lobby, Sheriff Loomis stepped toward the doors like he was going to intervene. Judge Castellan spoke one sentence that stopped him cold. "Take one more step, Sheriff, and you will be next." Loomis froze, jaw working, eyes burning, but his feet did not move. Outside, Slade turned his head and looked through the glass straight at Beckett, eyes burning. And even with cuffs on his mouth would follow. Those were just beginning would follow. Those were just beginning. But the night itself, the machinery of fear and control that Slade had built and oiled and operated for years in this town, that was over. Because you cannot operate a machine in the dark when someone has turned on the lights. And the lights had been turned on by a woman who could not breathe. Judge Castellan found Beckett in the corridor an hour later. The building had gone quiet in the way hospitals get quiet before dawn. Not peaceful, exhausted. Staff moved slowly. Phones stopped ringing. Even the vending machine seemed to hum at a lower register. Wyatt was in the consult room with Ms. Tierney and Ms. Farrow. Asleep, finally curled on the couch with the blanket wrapped so tight around him that only his hair was visible. His shoes were still on. Nobody had tried to take them off because the boy had flinched when Ms. Farrow reached for his feet, and some battles were not worth fighting at 4 in the morning. Beckett stood outside the room with his back against the wall and his eyes on the hallway. Dre sat on the floor nearby, legs stretched out, phone dark, staring at nothing. Judge Castellan stopped a few feet from Beckett. She looked different up close than she had in the dark sedan or the diner corner. Older, 60 at least, silver hair cut sharp, eyes that held intelligence and grief and patience in equal measure. She did not look like a woman who made dramatic entrances. She looked like a woman who had spent decades making sure the right papers landed on the right desks at the right time. "Caleb Pryor," she said quietly. Beckett went very still. She did not break eye contact. "That is the name you know him by." Beckett's voice came rough. "We called him Dex." Judge Castellan nodded once. "Jolene's husband, Wyatt's father." The words landed with a weight that made the hospital walls feel too thin and the floor too hard and the fluorescent light too honest. Beckett had known it was coming. He had felt it building since the moment he saw the name on the wristband. But knowing something was coming and having it arrive were two different kinds of pain. "She never reached out," Beckett said, and it sounded like an accusation against himself more than anyone else. Judge Castellan's voice stayed calm. "She did. Once, a long time ago, a voicemail to a number your club used. The message did not make it where it needed to go. These things happen when people are running." Beckett's jaw tightened until it ached. Running from what? From everything the judge said. Dex died. She was 21, pregnant, no family, no money. She drifted. Eventually she landed here. And Slade found her the way men like Slade always find women like Jolene. Not by chasing, by waiting. Beckett stared at the floor. His hands were fists at his sides, and he did not trust himself to open them. "I was supposed to find them," he said. "Dex asked me. Before his last ride, he said if he did not come back to find his people and keep them safe." The judge watched him without judgment. "And you did not." No, the words sat between them. Ugly and honest, Judge Castellan did not soften it. She did not comfort him. She gave him something harder than comfort. She gave him context. "Jolene wrote to me 5 months ago," she said, "through a court program for domestic violence victims who cannot safely access legal help. Her letters were extraordinary, detailed, specific. She described the deputy, the sheriff, the motel, the bruises, the way he used Wyatt as leverage. She described patterns I had seen in other cases but never documented this precisely." She paused. "She even described what he would do if she tried to leave. She predicted his moves, the fake paperwork, the charm offensive with hospital staff, the pressure on the sheriff's office to close ranks. She predicted tonight." Beckett looked up. She predicted all of it. Not the details Judge Castellan said, The architecture. She understood how he operated because she had been studying him the way a prisoner studies a guard. Not to fight, to outlast. Dre spoke from the floor without lifting her head. She built the case before anyone knew there was a case. Judge Castellan looked at her. She built it with the only tool she had, a library computer, a pen, envelopes she bought one at a time so Slade would not notice the expense, and a 6-year-old boy she trained to tell the truth to the right people at the right time. Beckett's chest felt tight in a way that had nothing to do with the hour. "Why did you not act sooner?" he asked. "If you had her letters for 5 months." Judge Castellan's eyes held his without flinching. "Because letters are not evidence. Letters are allegations. I needed witnesses. I needed documented behavior in real time from people who were not Jolene. People whose testimony could not be dismissed as an unstable mother's paranoia." She paused. "I needed someone to walk into that diner and see what she needed them to see." Beckett stared at her. "She used us." Judge Castellan shook her head slightly. "She gave you the opportunity to see the truth. What you did with it was your choice. You chose to buy soup. You chose to follow the boy. You chose to call 911. You chose to document. You chose to report to state police instead of chasing a county SUV into the dark." She held his gaze. "Jolene did not need you to save her. She needed you to be the witness. And you were." The words echoed something Beckett had not heard yet. Something Jolene had not yet been able to say out loud because a machine was breathing for her, and the world was still catching up to the plan she had built in silence. Beckett looked toward the ICU corridor. Beyond the glass, Jolene lay still. Machines doing what her body could not. Wristband still on her wrist, name still visible. Pryor. She chose to wear it, Beckett said. The wristband. She went to the ER just for the bracelet. Judge Castellan nodded once. She needed the name on her body dated time-stamped official, so that when everything happened, there would be a record that she had reclaimed her identity before the crisis. Not during. Before. Intentionally. Beckett closed his eyes. He saw Dex, not the last morning but an earlier one, laughing about something stupid. Oil on his hands, squinting into sun, saying, "I am going to be a father," like it was the most terrifying and beautiful sentence in any language. And he saw Jolene, 21, alone, pregnant, leaving a voicemail that never arrived, drifting into a town that ate her name, finding a library computer, writing letters in the dark, teaching her son to count coins, teaching him to say his real name, teaching him to tell the truth to the right people, not waiting to be saved, saving herself one piece at a time with nothing but patience and precision and a refusal to let the man with the badge be the last chapter of her story. Beckett opened his eyes. "When she wakes up," he said, "what does she need?" Judge Castellan's expression did not soften, but it changed. The strategist receded and something older appeared, something that looked like it had been carrying other people's survival for a very long time. "A safe plan," she said. "Not a hero plan, a safe one. Housing, medical coverage, protective order enforcement, a fresh start somewhere Slade's network cannot reach." Beckett's voice stayed flat. "The club can cover the hospital, and the housing, whatever it takes." Judge Castellan's eyes narrowed. "Money helps, but money does not fix control. Control is what we are cutting out." Beckett nodded. "Tell me what you need and I will do it the clean way." The judge held his gaze for 1 second longer. Then she nodded once, like she believed him. The sky outside the hospital windows turned gray just before 6. Not sunrise, just the absence of full dark. The kind of light that does not promise anything, but shows you what survived the night. Ms. Tierney woke Wyatt gently. He came up fast and afraid the way children do when sleep has not been safe for a long time. "It is morning," Ms. Tierney said. "Your mom is still sleeping. The doctors say she is doing a little better." Wyatt's eyes moved to the hallway, then to the glass panel of the ICU room where he could just see the edge of Jolene's bed. "Can I see her?" Ms. Tierney looked at the ICU nurse who nodded. They walked him to the glass. He pressed close again. Same hovering distance, same whisper. "Mom, I am here. I did not leave." No response, just the machine, just the rhythm. Wyatt whispered, "I said the right name. I told them the truth. Like you said." A long pause. Wyatt's fingers pressed against the glass like he was trying to reach through it. Please wake up. Beckett stood at the end of the corridor and let the boy have his moment without audience. Dre stood beside him. Neither of them spoke. Then the ICU nurse appeared, moving differently, not alarmed, almost surprised. She looked at Miss Tierney. She is awake. Wyatt's head snapped up. The nurse held up a hand. She is still intubated. She cannot talk. But her eyes are open and she is responsive. The doctor is assessing now. Wyatt's whole body vibrated with the effort of not running to the door. Can she see me? The nurse looked at Mrs. Tierney, who looked at the trooper, who looked at Voss, who had appeared at the end of the corridor like he had not slept either. Voss nodded once. The nurse guided Wyatt to the glass. The curtain inside was pulled halfway. Beyond it, Jolene's eyes were open, glassy, confused, but open. She turned her head toward the window, slow, like the movement cost her everything she had left. And she saw Wyatt, her hand lifted off the bed, not much, an inch, two, fingers reaching toward the glass from the other side, trembling. Wyatt pressed his palm flat against the window. Mom, he whispered, you did it. Jolene's eyes filled. A tear ran down her temple into the pillow. She could not speak. The tube would not let her. But her lips moved, and even through the glass and the tubes and the machines and the distance, Beckett could read what she mouthed. You did it. 2 hours later, the tube came out. Jolene's voice was a wreck, hoarse, broken, barely there, but it was hers. Miss Tierney brought Wyatt into the room. He climbed onto the edge of the bed so carefully it looked like he was trying not to disturb a butterfly. Jolene's arm went around him, weak, shaking. But there, Beckett stood in the doorway, not inside. He was not family. He was not the hero of the story. He was the witness, and the witness stays at the threshold. Jolene's eyes found him over Wyatt's head. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. The machines beeped. The Ive dripped. The morning light through the window was pale and honest and asked nothing of anyone. I did not need you to save me, Jolene rasped. Her voice barely carried, but every word was deliberate. Chosen. The same precision she had used in her letters and her plan, in the way she had taught her son to hold coins and speak truths. I needed you to be the witness. Beckett nodded once. His throat was too tight to speak. He did not trust his voice anyway. Jolene's hand moved to Wyatt's hair, smoothing it, holding him. Dex told me about you, she whispered. He said you were the kind of man who kept promises. Beckett's eyes burned. I did not keep this one. Not in time. Jolene shook her head, small, slow. You are here now. And that was enough. Not because it erased 7 years of absence. Not because it fixed the motel or the bruises or the nights when Slade locked the door and told a small boy to be good or his mother would cry. But because sometimes being present is the only promise left that matters. And keeping it is the only redemption available. Beckett stepped back from the doorway. Let the mother and son have the room. In the hallway, Dre leaned against the wall, eyes red, face steady. What now, she asked. Beckett looked at his phone. A message from Boone. The club was still in town. Quiet, waiting. 77 engines, cold and patient. Now we do it the clean way, Beckett said. Housing, medical, legal protection, all of it. And we make sure she never needs to write letters in the dark again. Dre nodded. And Slade. The system has him, Beckett said. And for once, the system has better paperwork than he does. The diner was quiet when they arrived that morning, early enough that only a few locals sat with cups in hand and eyes that had not yet adjusted to the light. Ruthie stood behind the counter, still in her apron. She looked like she had not slept. When she saw Beckett and Dre, she did not smile. She did not scold. She just said, "Is the boy safe?" Beckett nodded, yes. Ruthie's face crumpled for half a second. Then she caught herself, straightened her apron, wiped the counter that was already clean. 20 minutes later, the door opened and Ms. Tierney walked in with Wyatt beside her. A trooper stayed outside, casual, just a man leaning on a car in the morning sun. Wyatt stepped into the diner slowly, blankets still around his shoulders. His eyes moved across the room. Tables, booths. The long table where 77 men had sat the day before. It was not full this time, but it was not empty either. Men from the club sat scattered, No vests, no patches showing, just ordinary people in ordinary clothes, drinking coffee and watching a 6-year-old boy walk to the counter like he was carrying something heavier than his body should be able to hold. Ruthie came around the counter. She crouched behind the register barrier so she was not towering over him. "Hey, baby," she said. Her voice shook once. Wyatt looked at her. His eyes were too old and too tired and too full of things a child should not know how to name. "Can I get soup?" he asked. Ruthie's eyes filled immediately. She blinked it back hard. "Yes, you can." Wyatt reached into his hoodie pocket. His fingers moved slowly, carefully, the way his mother had taught him. He pulled out a small pile of coins, the same ones, the ones he had poured out on the table the day before, the ones Beckett had slid back, the ones that had started everything. He counted them. 1 quarter, 4 dimes, 5 nickels, 2 pennies. His lips moved as he added, $1, he whispered, 37 cents. He pushed the coins across the counter toward Ruthie. The diner went silent, not the way it had gone silent yesterday when 77 motorcycles rattled the windows. This was a different silence. This was the silence of men who had lived long enough to know that courage did not always roar. Sometimes it counted change on a counter and spoke in a voice that barely carried past the salt shaker. Wyatt looked up at Ruthie. His face was pale. His eyes were red from a night that should never have happened to anyone, let alone a boy who had not yet learned to tie his shoes without concentrating. "Not for me," he said. His voice was small but steady. Steady the way his mother's voice had been steady, even when her lungs were failing and her plan was all she had left, for the next kid. Ruthie's hand went to her mouth. She could not speak. She just nodded. Fast. Over and over, like if she stopped nodding, she would fall apart. Beckett stood near the wall, hands in his pockets, not moving closer, not making it about him. He watched the boy push the coins across the counter, and he saw 2 people at once. He saw Dex, the laugh, the oil-stained hands, the way he squinted into sun, the way he said, "I am going to be a father," like it was the most terrifying and beautiful sentence in any language. And he saw Jolene, the letters, the library computer, the coins collected one at a time from jacket pockets and cup holders, the wristband worn like a flag. The plan built in silence. The mother who refused to be the last chapter of a story someone else was writing. Wyatt stood at the counter with his chin up and his coins pushed forward and his shoulders square the way someone had taught him. The way you stand when you have practiced being brave. The way you stand when the only person who ever told you the truth about the world is lying in a hospital bed, breathing on her own again because she fought for that breath with nothing but words and patience and a refusal to disappear. $1.37. It was never enough for soup. It was never supposed to be. It was enough to make 77 men go silent. It was enough to make a president recognize a name. It was enough to start a chain of witnesses that reached from a diner counter to a motel room, to an ambulance, to an emergency room, to a courtroom, to a pair of handcuffs closing around the wrists of a man who thought his badge made him untouchable. It was enough because a woman made it enough. From a bed she could barely get out of, with a fever that should have killed her, with a plan that ran on nothing but the belief that if she put the right name in the right place at the right time, somebody would see it. Somebody did. And in a small diner in a Tennessee town that had forgotten her name, her son pushed coins across a counter and gave them away. Not for himself, for the next child who might walk in alone, for the next mother who might be lying in a motel room wondering if anyone would come. Ruthie picked up the coins. She did not put them in the register. She put them in a glass jar on the counter where everyone could see them. She wrote on a piece of tape in shaky handwriting and pressed it to the glass. Soup fund. And Wyatt looked at the jar with his mother's courage in his eyes and his father's name on his wrist and said nothing. Because sometimes the bravest thing a 6-year-old can do is not speak at all. It is simply to stand there and let the silence carry what words cannot. 77 men did not make a sound, not because they were afraid, because they understood.